turn it over to Kirk, who is going to moderate for us today.
And I should mention it is under F# Software Foundation code of conduct and things like that, right? We should mention that at the start of each one. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Kirk.
Yeah, all right, let's get started. First of all, welcome to everyone who came out to this lovely event. It is lovely to see you all. My name is Kirk Shillingford. A lot of you may not know me, and that's okay. I am a sort of like quiet but enthused member of the F# community. I feel really fortunate and grateful that Don and Kathleen have reached out and asked me to help sort of like host and moderate this event. So I'm hoping we have a really lovely time. This is my first Dugnad. Am I pronouncing that right? Dugnad. And I recently found out what that meant. For those who don't know, Dugnad is a Norwegian term that basically means sort of the spirit of volunteerism and community organization, which feels like exactly what we want to kind of encourage here. So just to give a little framing for what we're going to do, I think the best way for us to kind of do this is we're going to do a quick round of introductions for the folks who are presenting here. We're going to dive a little bit into sort of the state of the F# community and sort of the big wins we've had since the last time we had one of these. I think it's been a while. It's been about a year. And then if we have time, we'll sort of open up the discussion for some of the things some of our speakers here are interested in and have been working on, and maybe we'd like to look at for the next few months or so in the F# community. We are trying to get this series sort of like revitalized, so we'll see how the timelines play out, whether this happens again in the next month or in the next quarter, but it really is something that we'd like to continue on. We've had some lovely things come out of the older events. And yeah, it's just really supposed to be like a sort of a fun conversation for people who like F# and like contributing to F# to talk about, hey, this is what I like. This is what I don't like, but I'm working on making better. You know, this is where people are doing great work. This is where I want to do great work, and just a fun time. So I think I will stop talking for a brief moment and give the other hosts here a chance to introduce themselves. Maybe we'll start with Kathleen.
Hi, I'm Kathleen, and also a lot of you either don't know me or know me related to other languages. And so a bit back, we moved to, I have a role called PM at Microsoft. And the way I think of that is that I represent what the community, what the users need for our stuff. And I've been involved in languages. I've also been involved in the SDK. And I switched off of the SDK and templating. I actually handed it off to Chet Husk, who's here, is also from the F# community. And I am looking over all the languages. And the first thing I realized on that is that my weak point is F#, and that's where I need to spend my time. So I've been doing a lot of work, and I do come to F# from a perspective of, I remember what the first pain feels like. I remember what it feels like to get started. And I am going to hold on to that as tightly as I can, because we have a lot of folks that can go to depth, and I really want to also interact with any of you and other people in the community that are newer to F# to say, how can F# be better for that starting developer? So that's my role here, and I also have some organizational roles, so you might see me in things like blog posts and things like that. And so anyway, I can't tell you how I feel like the luckiest person in the world to have the job I do. And so that's what I'd like to share about myself. And I'm going to hand it over to Don, who is the person here who you are most likely to have heard of before. And he can tell you whatever he wants to tell you about himself today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kathleen. Thanks, Kirk. And yeah, Kirk, I first met you, but I'm not sure how I came across virtualcoffee.io that you did during the pandemic. Looked like a great community thing. And yeah, wonderful to have you along. And it's been great to work with Kathleen on a whole range of different efforts. I think Kathleen will be talking about it more, but her big focus, she's mentioned a bit already, that beginner experience with F#, that focusing on simplicity in F#. that immediately had some big impacts in F#6, the design, you know, some of the work we did in that, even taking that dot out on the array indexing syntax and a bunch of other things, was just like, yeah, simplify this thing. In getting rid of some old features, some like deprecated features, we flushed them out, and that's Kathleen's influence coming through into the ethos of what is into the ethos of the F# design. And in fact, a lot of people said to me, you know, people who didn't know object-oriented programming, had just done a bit of programming, and they said, this looks like Visual Basic. Okay, and there's actually some truth in that. There's some of the simplicity of Basic is actually, and I really mean the positive simplicity of Basic, is actually present. It's the first programming language I learned. It's actually present in F#. And so that theme, simplify, from the language to design, but that has to be right through the community, an ethos of loving simple, productive experiences. And I think it's, you know, it's just totally at the core of what we do in F#. It's got to be in the documentation. It's got to be in the library designs. It's got to be in the core websites. So even the Wikipedia page needs to, in some sense, convey simplicity and love for it. And so let's just, you know, remember some of those themes as we go along and clean up the neighborhood and in our Dugnad time. And this is a fun time. I've got myself, we all have fun in different ways. I do enjoy from time to time a glass of wine, and I'm having that here. You all please enjoy this time and make it a positive and fun one between us all. Thanks. And I think, Chet, are you going to say something, or over to you?
I suppose I could. I'm a longtime F# community member. I maintain some tooling for VS Code. I do issues. I contribute. I help people, I guess. And as Kathleen mentioned a few months ago, I sort of slipped into her old role. So the overall dev takeover of F# enthusiasts proceeds apace, everyone.
Yeah, and just to mention a few comments on the chat, we'll call out from time to time. Or Kirk, do you want to do those?
Yeah, I think I'll moderate the chat a little bit. So far, there's some folks saying hi. We have someone from Austria in here, which is really cool. I do appreciate the international nature of F#. It was very funny when we sort of planned this. It's like, well, Kathleen's 4 hours behind and you're 4 hours ahead and I'm smack dab in the middle, and we somehow found a way to make that work out. So that was pretty fun. And yeah, just
Chet's halfway between you and I, Kirk.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
And everyone who is on the call, please feel free to make the chat your own. Just chat away. Leiko, lovely to have you along for your first Dugnad. And recognize some of the other names: Martin, Pierre, Kevin, and Kai. I'm not sure if we've met before. And people who are using their short names, it's not so easy to tell. Vlad has just joined us. Please feel free to turn on your camera. Don't be shy. I think teams can cope with it. So just please do feel free to turn them on. It's totally cool. Yep. Hi, Dor. Hi, Leiko. Good to see you. You're in the same spot as me, Leiko.
Yeah. You said something earlier, Don. I just kind of want to touch on, like, and I mean, you know, part of the whole spirit of this whole thing is community. I have been fortunate in that I'm somewhere in the middle in terms of my software journey, not necessarily beginner, not necessarily advanced, but I've managed to touch a few languages. And I will say that I think all the languages that I feel like have resonated with me, good syntax is nice, good semantics is even better. But, you know, community and documentation cannot be understated. And you can tell the languages that care and the ones that don't. And I feel like there's a big swing nowadays in tech in general about like languages that provide joy. And when I look at why the Python community became what it was, the Elm community, which is how I got into functional programming, then meeting the F# community, and even like the Rust community, you hear this common thread of, oh, I really like working at this. You know, like I really enjoy this. And I think part of that is people finding like the community's been great. People have been helpful. People are talking. The people writing this seem happy about writing this. And this is obviously, you know, all empirical, but it does feel like there's something there. And it feels like if you want to be the right place to be or a good place to be in 2022. It feels like you can't ignore that, you know?
Yeah. And in many ways, the Dugnad is about finding where where things aren't working in the community. So it is, and like where things need cleaning up, where things are overly complex. And so it is about making things simpler and getting those joyous experiences across to everyone.
Yeah. And so I think the next thing we sort of want to do right now is just kind of do a little bit of a lay of the land and talk about some of the things that have happened since the last Dugnad. Like Don said, there's been a lot of work into making the documentation more approachable. And documentation is a evergreen conversation. But like, what is good documentation? What makes sense and what doesn't make sense? For those of us who've had experience in the .NET space, then I think it's fair to say we've seen examples of good and not good documentation. Documentation that we thought was a great idea, and in hindsight, like maybe this isn't the right way to reach people. So I will have to say that the F# community has been making a lot of strides there, and just like, are there enough examples from the core libraries? Are there enough examples in the language docs? Like, are we getting enough coverage of the language as a whole, its key features? Promoting the style guide and giving more relevance there, so that like when people write F# from different places, it's readable by everyone. And recently, there's been a really lovely push I've seen to get F# documentation translated. So not just being English-centric, but including Spanish, Portuguese, English, and we've had a lot of members of the community step up there. And that's been, I think, a really powerful thing. And it's just another step of just giving the, I think, like true idea that this is a language that we want for everyone. I always tell people that, you know, I like to think of myself as one of the guinea pigs for. I'm not necessarily an old OOP person or like a C# expert, and I'm not necessarily coming from the Haskell-esque or the sort of like the pure category theory types. I'm just someone who found the language and fell in love. And I'd like to see more of F# as like the first language I recommend to people. Hey, what do I learn if I want to learn programming? Like, hey, try F#. You know, it's got everything you need. It's good for a beginner. It's good throughout your journey. And I think like a lot of our push in terms of what we're doing today is how do we get that to happen? But yeah, just want to give a shout out to all the work that's been happening over the last year or so on really, really cleaning the docs, really getting things in a way that's approachable. Don, I don't know if you have any particular things you want to highlight in that area.
Yeah, there are some things I will call out. We're getting some links to from Kathleen to work that's been done, and let me just find it. If you look, I'll link the issue here. I will just screen share for just a moment. I've got a habit of screen sharing too much in presentations, but I will screen share this if it comes up. Is it coming up? There we go. Screen sharing here. This issue in the .NET F# repo for the F#.core documentation. We didn't have examples for basic things. These sections at this time last year, these were not populated. And all the way through F#.core, we've now got good, high-quality examples. The community really took a lead on this. This is one of those things where, when somebody starts them, I go, right, that's how to do it, and then it was helped me to go through and also contribute and kind of make things nice and regular. And this is great. And if you take a look at what we've done for F#.core, we've just got a few left here: async, common extensions, task, event, some F# reflection things. You want to go through and help finish those off. We've just pulled another one today, observable. So you can go to the bottom of this issue, 12124, added examples for observable. You can go this evening and finish off some of the work for async, or finish off some of it for event, or the reflection ones, and then that will be really wonderful to have everything done. So please go and contribute to that. The other big one, translated docs, docs.microsoft.com. One of the great things is that Microsoft pay for the translation of the docs. So you can go and contribute probably in English to the docs. So you can, we did do a big revamp on this. You can contribute to all of this just by going and editing. It's all in the .NET docs under the F#. You can help with anything in here. So please improve those docs. Now, one major change in these docs is we've just added a few more topics, and they are kind of crucial topics. We have F# for machine learning, and they're thin, but they tell you the basics. They're linking through to other topics like ML.NET or doing deep learning with TorchSharp or with FSLab. F# notebooks and so on, F# for web development. So you can see that there's a change in these docs, which are docs.microsoft.com, where we're much more willing to call out the ecosystem of technologies. And so you can help us. These are, now because they're on the Microsoft site, they're curated, they are opinionated. And you can contribute and help in the discussion about how we should be linking out to the broader ecosystem and helping people know what's available. The F# style guide, in conjunction with the Fantomas people, huge contributions by the Fantomas people, Florian and others, and the people at G Research, a major company in London who use F# a lot. And that we've been making sure Fantomas actually implements his style guide, and that's this one here. You can see these nice little green and red ticks for what you do and don't do. So you can go and help contribute in the discussions on that, on the style guide. And again, it's just that edit button in the top right to get involved. And so please do get involved. One final call out is something I mentioned on Twitter, is that someone is going through docs.microsoft.com. I'll just go over to the repo. So I'll hit edit and find the repo and take a look here. And I will look at the pull requests and I'll look at the closed ones. Once we find examples for F#, am I going to be able to find this? There might be too many things coming through. Let me take one more look. So I'm not going to find the issue right now, but someone Albert Du has been adding literally going through alphabetically from system.action through to, he's up to system.garbage GC, writing F# samples for absolutely everything. So if you go to system.datetime now, and you search for, say, it in C# to here, then you've got this button at the top right where you can, it's normally C#, you can now choose F#. And so you're linking through to any of these, you see F# samples all the way down for everything in date time. And that's actually just really nice. So huge, it's a huge amount of 25,000 lines of samples have been contributed by Albert Du. An absolutely amazing contribution. So thank you, Albert. I don't think he's on the call, but super thank you for everything you've done.
Yeah, Don, if you go back to that for just a second, I wanted to add there. So if you scroll back up to the top, Don pointed out where this edit button is. I just want to say something about this process. So all Microsoft Docs is on GitHub. So what happens when you click that edit button is you actually go to the Get Right place in GitHub, and then it opens and allows, you have to hit edit a second time. So there's another pencil here that you need to check in order to do that. But then after you make your changes, then that does a PR. Someone will look at your work. So you don't have to feel like, oh, I'm not sure it's perfect. I don't know. Just tell us where the problem is, tell us what you think the solution is, and there will be another set of eyes on it. That's just a normal PR review process like you'd have on code. So that's what the docs people have set up. And so understanding that, so, you know, the more that you tell us about why you did something, the easier it is. But when you do this, you're not just like directly changing the docs, which also just means it might take a minute. I'm sorry, not a minute, a day or two to see your change in. And certainly, let us know if you think it's absolutely urgent. But yeah, so there is a process. It is one that's very comfortable and normal for programmers. So please feel free. There's a few things like adding samples that if you can just put them in line, then somebody can help you or can do themselves getting it done the way that samples happen there.
Pro tip there also, instead of clicking the pencil, you can just click dot or period on your keyboard, and it will launch you into that VS Code browser experience. So you'll have the full VS Code experience available to you inside of GitHub. And
we didn't introduce Luis at the beginning, so I'm just going to give a shout out to him. So Luis was on the docs team doing some of this work. He has recently moved very happily to the ML.NET team. We're super excited. I'm super excited anyway that he's there. And last summer he did some videos. So if you have friends or you yourself would like to watch some 101 material, some introductory material, his videos are extremely good, and I would recommend those.
So if you're going to write larger doc topics, there is absolutely a case for people to write some larger tutorials as well into those docs. Or anything you do, you're really well supported in contributing to those docs. The people, you can see here, I did some F#6 doc revamp, and you can see that here Larry O'Brien has been contributing to commenting, and other people here. One of the main copy editors, who is Genevieve Warren, just puts loads and loads of feedback. You've got really good tools here to help you, which is checking your markdown and checking a whole lot of things about your links and everything else. So the doc system is really nicely set up to contribute to. So don't be afraid to really get involved in docs.microsoft.com/.net.
Yeah, and I want to just kind of jump in quickly to say, I mean, I speak to a lot of, especially like early career developers, or just lots of people who want to get into open source, and they are unsure where to start. They're very trepidatious. They're scared of many people. The most contrary I've seen is like, I don't want to do something that like breaks someone's good work. And people are very fearful of that. But I would absolutely recommend this type of work as a low barrier to entry, very supportive way to start contributing to open source. As we've seen, the folks who work on this are very thoughtful. They're very friendly. They're happy to give feedback. And it's just a real nice way of starting the process with that type of participation. If you're maybe a little worried about diving directly into like making changes to a code base or like actual working code, starting with documentation is great. It helps out everyone. And I really, really encourage people to do it. And it's one of those things where there will only be gratitude afterwards from everyone involved that you made a contribution, no matter how small. So please, do not be shy. And if you're ever concerned, you can reach out to folks like myself, and like we're all in the same spaces, and be like, hey, can you help me out with this? We'd be happy to, for sure. I see some Chet in the chat has posted a link for Albert's work on the API docs, and it's just I think we've got a link here for the base class library docs. So if you want to contribute to those as well, so there's lots of spaces where you can contribute. Okay, so I think with that,
I'll stop sharing.
I think this was very good. I personally did not know that it was even like this easy to contribute to some of these docs, and now I'm personally thinking like, oh, I could. I appreciate this. It's lowering the barrier to entry for these types of things is really important, and now it's like contributing to the docs goes from being this whole affair that you have to psych yourself up for, or it's like, hey, while I'm reading the documentation, if I see something that I think could be improved, like just while using it, the pipeline from I think I could help here to there's a PR going and I can get feedback is cool.
And something we've been beginning to use a bit more is that an error message from the compiler can now use a docs link, and we go via an akka.ms link for the shortcut that we can redirect in the future if we need to. But that's it's a really there are some error messages, and Kathleen will be talking more about diagnostics in a bit, but some which probably need explanatory text, especially say when we've used it when things get deprecated, for example, and we say, well, why are we deprecating this thing? Why are you faced with this message? And it's just much easier to link people either through to an RFC or to a landing page to explain why things have been simplified, changed. And you know, for some error messages like the value restriction in F# or perhaps some other ones, you know, sometimes linking through to a tutorial is just the best thing at the end of the error messages. So, you know, feel free to be contributing improvements and articles. You know, in some ways we've looked at Scott Wolashin's F# for Fun and Profit, and we thought, man, God, we should just link through to there in some cases. The material is great. Generally, we won't do that because the site might come and go, but the docs.microsoft.com can have similar material.
Yeah, and I think it sort of just highlights the collaborative nature of all this. Everyone in some way, shape, or form is working on improving these. So also for folks who might want to start doing your own F# content, every little bit helps. Sometimes people are afraid to do stuff because like, oh, this is well-trod material, but your video or your article might be the thing that makes it click for somebody else. So just, you know, never be afraid to kind of like get your content out there. And I think it makes the whole community better, for sure. Don, this might be a good time. So part of this process for those who are new is that we take some of the time here to sort of discuss upcoming things that folks in the community are interested in or feel like we should be able to direct our attentions to. So this feels like a good time to, now that we've seen some of the existing work that's been improving, to talk about where we think we could go next. And I want to maybe jump back to Kathleen on that to get us started.
Yeah, so I want to build on what we just talked about because it's in the chat, it's in what we just talked about, and it's very much on my mind right now, is that we have this this set of docs which has got a link there, and actually I'm actually gonna share just because I really would like to, let me make sure I'm where I want to be first. Am I not gonna get there? Okay, so we'll just do it this way. It's not where I want it to be, but it's close enough. So if we look at the docs that we have, there's two things, one of which is I work with Chet. We need to work with the docs folks because we're not getting good SEO on these. If you get the number, then you go, but if you type in the text, we're not going there.
So could you explain SEO for sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, search engine optimization. So, for example, one of my pet peeve errors is this is not a function and cannot be applied, which in most cases is in itself not a useful set of words to hear together at the moment that your code is broken. So that's FS0003. And if you type aka.ms FS003, I believe you go there. And the docs folks for other languages also go there if you quote the string. We don't yet, so we'll be working. We may make some changes to this format, but the scripts will keep up, and the scripts help you do sample code. But for FS0003, if you look at that, what's currently there, and you can do this now or later, you'll see that it's focused on, it's very narrow, and it doesn't really give you all the situations where that can happen.
Are you sharing, Kathleen?
I'm not right now. I was going to, and then I didn't. So I'll go ahead and share this. I couldn't find it on the site, but I can share it. Come on, we can share it. It doesn't seem there. Here we go. My Teams is, of course, misbehaving. So here we should be able to, right here. And Don puts up with my widescreen, so he'll notice right away that I'm using the my screen that hopefully looks okay. But if we open this up and we look at the text here, that's it. And those of you that have encountered this know that you can get this in many different ways, including unexpected things around currying, around missing parentheses, around there's just a variety of ways that you can get this. And so I'm working right now. I have in my VS Code. I didn't get a chance to finish it in order to merge it yet. On saying, just a friendlier, this is common, and here's things you can do. So the reason I wanted to bring that up is if you run across an error that's not helpful, first of all, it's good for us to know that because we would like to fix the errors, but there's lower hanging fruit to just telling people the situation that they could run into. And this is a good place for that. We are going to get even better SEO in here already. I don't know if we link from the error list or not, but we are going to look at getting to these, and it's a great place for you to say, man, I ran into that error, and it was because of this, which was unexpected. And that would be a huge help. 5 years ago, there was a big effort on errors. And at that point, there was a bunch of errors got improved. Saying there's missing tokens, including an equal sign. If you neglect to put in equals after your type definition, that was fixed then. Other errors were fixed then, which was great. But some of the ones that are left are harder. And so if you want to be involved in just figuring out what the messages should be and what the different situations are, one place that we can do that is just by telling people the different situations they're encountered in, which we can do here in these docs, which can help people in the short term, as well as facilitating a longer term fix for this. So that's what I wanted to share there. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts they want to follow on that?
Kathleen, well, first of all, a bunch of people have noticed that page is already out of date, that particular error message. So
yes.
People, because of the indexer stuff. So that's
yes.
great to
yes.
get people on it to go. Philip has already submitted the pull request, it looks like, which is removed.
Well, I have one I'm working on too. So we'll just roll through a few changes to this side. It'll be great. We can absolutely we can do merge conflicts. We know how to do that. So
secondly, I honestly had never noticed that the error number in the error list inside Visual Studio has a link, and yes, that we could in theory link across to those error messages. I wonder, I'd love to know how many people have tried to press that link to get more information on an error.
Yeah.
Really good. Let's wire that up and get all of these error messages. Let's do it. Wonderful. Yeah.
It does have a downside, and I'm working with Bill Wagner. And it doesn't look like there's a lot of ways better. We just have to decide what we want to do here. It is very frustrating to click that and have it take you to something not helpful. And because of the way Visual Studio works, we either always jump or we never jump. There's no jumping only when there's someplace to land. There's no mechanism for that, which is
do you know where it takes you today?
Well, no, I don't. Do you?
It takes you to bingdev.cloudapp.net, which is listed as a insecure connection. So whatever we do is going to be better than that.
We would be hard pressed to do any worse than that. Okay. So short of going to an inappropriate site. So yes. So some of that's going to be folks in Microsoft working with the docs folks to get that done. And looks like Luis had to leave, I think. But certainly he still has friends. We all have friends in docs. We can move that forward. Some of that stuff we'll have to do, but whether it should go on the link, we'll have to think about that, only because is it better to never go or to go and say this isn't helpful? But we won't have it keep going where it does right now. At the least, we could have it always link to that top level, the top level page there that says, the compiler errors. And then it's like, oh, well, why didn't you just go ahead and take me to FS003? Or we worked something out on that. So yeah. Anyway, I would love it if people would say, next time you get annoyed at the way an error does, at least putting a comment, an issue in on that particular on the particular message, if not going ahead and adding an example of what you encountered. So yeah, and errors are super big. I really feel very passionate about errors. I would say that they were nearly the biggest pain point of me learning F# was when errors did not help me. And I have the extremely privileged position of having some really smart people on my speed dial, mostly who are on this call, who spent a lot of time with me, and not everybody has that. So really making those errors better is, and our first step is getting them documented, and our second step is improving them. So yeah.
There is a related issue I'd like to point people to, and that's got to do with what happens when you press F1 in Visual Studio. This service is also available to VS Code and to Rider and the like. So at the moment, when you're sitting inside these development environments and you press F1, then we're sending people to that's F1 for help and you're sitting on your cursor is on something like system.datetime or something, or f#list.map or something. It's obvious what should happen. You should get taken to the primary documentation page that you'd also find from a Google search, but that is not happening. You're getting taken to old documentation from Visual Studio 2013 in some cases. I've documented the problem in that issue that I just put, and that is fixable by going and just putting inside the F# compiler service the right logic to generate a better URL. And so there's also an associated issue, which is that we can have, if you're sitting on top of a keyword like match, for example, and you press F1, then we can get good documentation pages for that. And it's just a matter, as I understand it, it's a pretty simple process where we just have to go and mark up the relevant sections in the docs to say, hey, here's where you should go to for when when you're sitting on a match keyword. So if you're interested in improving that core part of the experience, the information is there, and you can also connect with me and Kathleen to help fix that issue. If whoever, first in, first out, but it'd be great to get work on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that feels, well, I guess we had a sort of a nice seg there from the last section to this section. And one of the things that feels good, it's like it's good work, but it's not hyper intense. We're not building a compiler from scratch. A lot of it is just, if you see something, say something, and if you're not sure how exactly to solve it, then, well, the PR process is collaborative, so you can always get feedback. Or if not that, even just raising the issue, and then somebody else who you might think might be more qualified might want to pick it up. But we can't fix it until we know about it. So it's just like, as Kathleen said, if something doesn't sit well with you, something feels confusing, incomplete, ill-structured, overly complex, let us know. Respectfully, of course, but if you let the team know, they can take a chance, take a look at it, see what can be done, and makes it better for everyone. So I tend to, just keep that idea of like, if something's troublesome for me, there is a very high likelihood that it is also frustrating for somebody else. So not only am I helping myself, but I'm helping everyone else who might come across this problem. I want to give a quick shout out. I see Philip who's joined the call. He said he'd be a little late. We were happy he's here. Philip, do you mind just giving folks like a quick introduction of yourself? You've been one of the, at least for me, one of the people I knew the most in the F# community before I discovered everyone else. So the other folks might want to know you too.
Yeah, sure. Hang on real quick. I'm going to get shorter here. Yeah, everyone. I'm Philip. I used to work on F# for about 5 years at Microsoft. Helped put together a lot of the docs stuff that we got going so far. I'm sure if there's something that could be improved in the F# docs, there's a good chance that it's my crimes that got that there. So I'm always happy to be pinged about like, hey, why are things communicated this way? Why are things organized this way? Why is this part of the language this way? Why are the tools this way? That I can definitely help with. Happy to do that in my open source time. And yeah, I just want to reiterate like how important docs and examples are for people who are getting started with the language. This is from like, it can be like a little more exciting maybe to contribute like new tooling features or work on a new language feature or a compiler feature or something. Like it sounds more interesting, I guess, to a lot of people. But the docs work is oftentimes much more impactful. A good example of this is like so many F# developers learned F# because they followed Scott Willashen's website, F# for Fun and Profit. Just keeps coming up year after year. And like when you talk to him about it, he's like, I wrote this like a decade ago, and you know, I was learning it at the time, and some of this is like definitely not the right way to talk about it anymore, but like that's fine, because that goes to show just how important having accessible conceptual content that teaches you how to do useful things in the language are. And so even tiny things like, hey, I want to clarify the way that you do if expressions, so that like you're never confused about how if works in the language. That actually matters a lot. I bring that up because I ran into that several times with people learning the language, being like, I don't know how to do an if statement. I know Java and I know what an if statement is there, but I found the docs for if statements in F#, and they're calling it statement even though it's an expression, but whatever. And then they were confused, and the example was like not clear to them. That's the sort of thing that like a lot of people are going to run into that. And so improvements of that nature are huge. So that's all I got to say about that.
I'm going to jump in and tell Kirk something. We should probably stop at 5 till the hour, so we probably have about 10 more minutes. Just to give everybody a breather before. Thank you. At least for me, it's my lunchtime. Thank you for those of you who it is your lunch or dinner time. That is awesome. So Louis, I'm sorry, Kirk, I'm going to hand it back to you, and we have about 10 more minutes, however we want to use that time.
Yeah, I think so. Chad mentioned something in the slide, and I mean, we've all been kind of circling around this. What is a project file and why do we need it? But so more to that concept of things we take for granted in .NET land. One of my experiences kind of coming into F# was I was sort of learning F# and C# at the same time. Or if I'm being fair, like using F# to learn C#. You know, so like I write some F#, and when I had to interface with C#, I'm like, well, I got to learn enough C# to get this to happen. And you know, one of the things I always think about is how much of our F# sort of like documentation and wording assumes prior C# knowledge. And there's a very practical reason for that, right? Like very much the most likely place you're going to get new F# devs is probably from somebody already in the .NET ecosystem. But, you know, as F# is sort of matured, you know, I'd like to think that F# is sort of doesn't just think of itself as, you know, sort of like sublimated or just like a part of .NET. F# is its own. We compile to JavaScript now. We compile to Rust now. You know, so I'm really interested in seeing more like F# first language. And you know, it's like, hey, if I want to learn how to set up a project or a solution in .NET, you know, I'd like to. What's the F# first documentation there, or what's the F# first example there? And it's like, it's sometimes it's rough where it's like to do something practical in the language, I need to sort of like jump back to some C# docs and maybe like retrofit them for my F# needs. So that's a space that I've been sort of looking into more and more is like, how do you learn F# without any prior knowledge of C#? You know, like this is the first thing out of the gate. What does that mean? How are your projects set up? How's your tooling set up? How are like real applications set up? And
it's an interesting point, Kirk. Yeah, that kind of orienting. Chet makes a related issue on the comment, which is about like people don't know basic concept of what is a project file, what is an FS project file, and why do I need it. So to me, that says that core docs.microsoft.com site actually should have a new topic, which is roughly answering that kind of. I think the general topic is like. How do I orient myself in the .NET world? Exactly how that. Yeah, that'd be great to see that added to docs.microsoft.com/F#.
Yeah.
Answering that. Yeah.
The thing I sort of think to myself is like, well, nowadays if I'm learning Swift, sort of like, well, I want to be able to do meaningful things in Swift without necessarily have to go through Objective-C, or you know, if you want to do Kotlin, do you want to necessarily go through Java? And not to sort of say those things are.
Yeah. I'd love to see on docs.microsoft.com/F#. I'd love to see F# for Python guide, F# for Swift, F# for Rust. Just let's, you know, okay, so 50% of F# users are going to come from C#. That is pretty much how it works out. But the others come from those other languages, Python, perhaps, because everyone learns Python in some way, Swift, Rust, Scala. Why don't we, I'd love to see F# for those communities on docs.microsoft.com. It'll be top of the SEO, I think, pretty quickly and let's get them done. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I think the biggest example I think we saw for that was Fable, you know, and that community really sort of, you know, taking the initiative and saying like, well, let's sort of like forge here, you know, and let's show you how to do this whole thing, and like we're talking about doing meaningful work in F#, and yeah, .NET's a part of that. But it's we're not assuming anything. We're assuming like you're here and you want to learn.
So I'd like to know from the people here who would feel able. Is there anyone who'd feel able to write an F# for XY ABC guide? Is anyone here, you know, been a Python programmer, been a Swift programmer, been a Scala programmer? Kirk,
I'd love to do one for Python. I think that'd be really fun.
Oh man, that would be so great. Anybody else? Okay, someone just nominated Angel for JavaScript, TypeScript. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, then I really mean we can highlight those on docs.microsoft.com. Yeah, let's just do that. So what I'll just share very briefly, what I really mean is that we have them right here, top of the list here, top of the list article on the most hit documentation site for F#. You'll have F# for Python programmers, F# for JavaScript programmers. There's probably nothing higher on the list that we can do to increase F# adoption than to write those articles and get them reviewed by above all by Python programmers who don't know F#. Get road tested. Yeah, we will get programmers coming to F# if we do that. Let's. We've got a new Dugnad in a month. If we have one or two of those landed by then, you know, or even drafts of them, that'd be absolutely great.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about this. I think we ought to do this next month. You know, it's great to see all these faces, and it'd be great to talk in a month about what, you know, what people, now that we've got it started again, you know, and it can be what's annoyed you and what, you know, folks being able to brag on what they've done. I think that'd just be great.
Vlad makes a point we should do F# for OCaml programmers. I think that's quite reasonable given the background. There's plenty of people who've come to the F# community via OCaml. I guess I should volunteer to write that if no one else is going to write that. It's the one which I came from because I was an OCaml programmer. Anybody else know who else was an OCaml programmer? Anybody? The most famous OCaml programmer in the world? Julian Assange was a OCaml programmer. And in fact, you can find his old messages to OCaml, the camel list, where they make very interesting reading. Anyway, so yes. So what do we actually? That's a good point. We might as well do the list. Somebody says F# for Haskell devs, abandon the type classes, and just feel good about it. So we do need that. If anyone feels like they want to write that, that'd be amazing. And I think F# for Scala programmers, numerically, there's still plenty of people who learn Scala. And yeah, so Scala. So we have the makings of a new initiative there, which we can probably track through next Dugnad as well.
Yeah, we've just about maybe 2 minutes left. So I think maybe this is time for a nice little recap of the conversation. We've spent a little bit of time looking at all the wonderful things the community's been doing, and we've spent some time looking at some places that we still need to improve on. And I think we have a little nice call to action out of this. So I would say, like, before the next one, everyone here, you know, and this is this is a volunteer effort. You know, we're all just like trying our best. We all just like want to make this a better community for ourselves and the people that we love and appreciate. So this is very much a low stress zone that over the next month or so, if you think of anything cool, if you think something might be beneficial, you think there's an idea that Don might like, or Kathleen or anyone here, you know, just sound it out, you know, and we're all available on various platforms. There's email, there's Twitter, but let's just like get it into the conversation, get it into the ether, get the energy up. And if we can even contribute maybe even one idea or one PR or one article that kind of moves the needle forward on what we think is a very lovely language for people to work in and write in, I think that's a good outcome out of this session. It's been really lovely, I think, to talk with everyone here and just meet folks in the space. And I've always been impressed by just how friendly and how welcoming the F# space has been, how inclusive the space has been, how deliberately inclusive the space has been. You know, we talked a little bit about a code of conduct earlier, Don, and you know, a lot of people wonder about those things, but like it sets the tone. It just shows like someone here is thinking about the space and what they want from the people in it, and we want the best for the people who are in it. We want a safe space for learning. People do not do their best work when they are stressed or unnecessarily pressured or in undue environments. So, you know, there's only good things from other people telling you, hey, come in, try your best. If you make mistakes, we'll help you through it. Let's do something good.
So, sounds great. I just we can ask anybody among the people who haven't been speaking so much want to raise any topics quickly at the end of the meeting. We've got a couple of minutes left. I just see Brandon just joined us. We're just about to close up, Brandon. Lovely to have you along. And yeah, open the floor to anyone for. Angel, Pierre, Martin, anyone want to dive in?
I guess. Well, I've been having this idea of writing like F# for Node developers. I mean, I guess it fits on the F# for JavaScript developer stuff for a while. And I think I have already some base material from the blog post that I've been doing over the last year. So I think this kind of fits nice into that. So I'll try to get something like can be used inside the F# docs, because, well, most of that is just written as like experience-based stuff. So I think those documentations has kind of different like word semantics and all that stuff.
Yeah, I could definitely see, as Chet says, there's a difference between F# for client side and F# for Node server side, and we can absolutely have F# for Node developers, F# for JavaScript and TypeScript developers. Sounds great. I'll probably create a tracking issue. I guess we'll just put it, since it's sort of a Dugnad effort, I'll put it on F#/FS Foundation, or maybe just as a note at the end of the Dugnad so we can track it through to the next one. We don't always talk about docs. The issue 912 that I linked in the FS Foundation that announced this Dugnad has the kind of set of topics that we talk about. Sometimes we talk more about the basic web presence with F#, like the fsharp.org landing pages and sort of that Wikipedia and so on. Then we talk technical docs today. There's also the question of learning F#, which is sort of overlaps with what we just talked about, F# for XYZ programmers. Sometimes we talk about the language design process, and then also sometimes about some of these core libraries and tooling. And we'd love to open it up to other topics like Fable, and for Ironide, for other parts of the F# ecosystem as well. So
That's good.
And with that, I'll say thank you to you, Kirk, for stepping in, and you know, it's really great to have someone to have you facilitating.
Vlad's hand is up.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of different topics, I spoke to Florian, and next Tuesday we're going to be talking about Antimus, and I will create the issue as usual for the in the foundation. And yeah,
Great. That is referring to, we have two series of things going on at the moment. We have the F# Dugnad chats, and we have the F# compiler chats, which are way more technical. There is an example issue for the F# compiler community sessions. And we've got, next one of those is a super deep dive into Fantomas. And if you want to get highly technical on the F# formatting side of things, code formatting, please get involved with that. Come along. And all of those get recorded as well, and are on the F# Software Foundation YouTube channel, which I'll just link that across as the final infomercial of today. There we have you can watch hours and hours on the F# compiler if you want technical guides, and soon there'll be ones on Fantomas, and this one will be added there as well. Kathleen's doing the recording. I guess you can hand over work with Vlad to get that posted up.
Yep. Vlad will tell me how to do it. Vlad, let's catch up right after this to see if you can tell me what I need to know. I just want to make sure that I hope it gets up before next Monday. So I'll work with Vlad right after this. If you don't mind.
And if you ever in any of these recordings want anything removed for any reason, just let us know. We'll before we post it up. Yeah.
And I think with that we're just about at time. I want to say just one last thank you to everyone who came out. This was a really lovely discussion. It's great to see you all. And let's do some good work.
And thank you, Kirk. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see you next time, if not next Tuesday.
Thank you.
thanks, everyone.